Hello. You probably clicked on this video because you're looking for information on emotional charge. You probably did a search for emotional charge. You've probably done an internet search and you probably haven't found much. I didn't. The term emotional charge means in the psychology dictionary, bottled up emotions, and that's about all I found. Okay, I couldn't find one article really on emotional charge as emotional charge. You might find the term somewhere in an article, but I couldn't find an article on it or what it is. So over on my website, you can click the link below on a technique for taking down negative emotions called my work is called Happiness is No Charge. You can find more information about it. In fact, I'm going to just basically read you the page on emotional charge and what it is. Okay? Because there's more to it than just bottled up emotions or emotions under pressure or suppressed emotions or repressed emotions that want to come up. Okay? In fact, in making my page on emotional charge, I made the mistake of not saving it. Shoot. And I deleted it accidentally. Arrgh! I hate that when that happens. So there's emotional charge right there. Okay? Shock and dismay. Bewilderment. How the heck could I do that? I didn't want to do that. Oh man. Sometimes I just get upset and livid and bothered and just, irate over things and stuff. Well, that's emotional charge. The pressure of the emotions, okay? It's an action on you. It's an actual type of energy. It's not just bottled up emotions, as you'll see. I'm not the inventor, discoverer of emotional charge. The term has been around for maybe the last 70 years or more. I don't know who coined the term. And I have tried to find out. The thought that emotions are in energy is not new either. I'm not the inventor or discoverer of that either. That began back in the mid to late 1500s. And one of the people who was researching and interested in that was Sir Francis Bacon. Okay, philosopher, politician, etc. Scientist, etc. I am only the discoverer of this particular technique. I didn't invent the mind or how it works or the brain or how it works or whatever. I'm not the coiner of the term mental charge, although I use it, or mental energy, although I use that too. Emotional energy, I use that also, but I'm not the inventor of it. Somebody else has coined the terms, okay? I have a 2-year study back in the 70s on psychosomatic phenomenon. I took a course, I passed the course, I got a certificate, etc. So I had an interest in the mind even back then, but when I got sick with Graves' disease and no thyroid and started having emotional problems, then it became imperative and necessary for me to learn. And after praying in sheer desperation and emotional charge, I discovered a technique. It hit me one day. And it has to do with this thing called charge. Emotions are not the only charge. Gunpowder is called the charge. Okay? set the charge. You set the charge of gunpowder. Okay? So this term, meaning energy, load, has been around for a long time. I didn't invent it. I'm just the discoverer of this particular technique. And only because I have the problem. And I had a realization about the state I was in, which was irritation, when I discovered the technique. And I did this technique, and it worked the first time. It was basically an accident. Plenty of scientific discoveries are discovered by accident. Penicillin. They left out a batch. It happened to be the batch that worked. They went to lunch, they put their experiment away, they come back from lunch, and oh, we forgot to put this one away. Hey, there's no mold growing on it. Which batch is that? It's how penicillin came about, as an accident. Okay. So no, it's not very scientific, but I do give you my findings and my results and my observations and how I observe things to work. So I set about to understand the workings of the technique. And like I said, I do have a background in psychosomatic phenomenon that dates back to the mid-70s, so I had studied some, and I knew the term emotional charge and traumatic charge. From back then, I have asked doctors, medical doctors, if they have heard of emotional charge. No, they haven't. Many of them have not. I have asked many nurses if they have heard of emotional charge. Yes, they have. I guess they had to study about emotional states in their patients, because they have to do a lot of dealing with patients, where a doctor comes in, gives a little examination, take another pill, and he's gone to the next patient, where the nurse has to stay there and deal with the patient. So she has to have an understanding of some psychology, and emotions are a big part of that. Okay? So nurses, caretakers, health caretakers, givers, they have to study this stuff, and they know. The hospice people that helped my father knew the term. Okay? The Psychology Dictionary defines emotional charge as bottled up emotions, and that's about it. I couldn't find any more information on it online at all. I couldn't find an in-depth article about it. But it's more than that I have discovered. Emotional charge is an energy, and I'm not the first person to put this forward, okay? It is the energy of the emotion, in the emotion, behind the emotion. It's kind of like what I'm doing right now, the inflection that I'm giving you. Okay? It's the energy of the inflection, the emphasis that I'm giving you, the energy in and of and behind the meaning of my words. The energy that I'm trying to put into my words to get my idea across to you. That's an energy. Okay? And that's a charge because there's a load to it. Okay? What is called the load? The amount. There's an amount to it. There's an intensity to it. There's a frequency to it, and not just how many times it has occurred, but an actual wavelength frequency. Okay? There is a polarity. Good and bad, right and wrong, positive and negative. Our emotions are there to tell us or to help us define The goodness and the badness and the rightness and the wrongness and the positiveness and the negativeness of what is going on around us and what is happening to us, what we're seeing. Okay? Emotions, unfortunately, have a lot to do with something we're not supposed to really have anything to do with, at least biblically, and that is judgment. Emotions are a judgment, good or bad, right or wrong, positive or negative. Biblically, we're said not to have been meant to have that. Okay? It came about from that Garden of Eden incident, you know. The charge is an action. Energy is an action. It wants to move. Kinetic energy. Electrical energy, like the lights here, is the flow of electrons in the wire. Okay? You have a movement of electrons. And how many electrons are moving past a point at any given moment, that's your amperage, your current. Okay? It's an energy. As an action, it actually has a velocity and momentum. Emotions do. Okay? Has your mind ever raced? Well, that was its speed. It overcame your mental, something hit you, you know, and it overcame your mental inertia and put you into action, made your mind active. Okay? Wow, that was interesting. That is so cool. How did you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And then you study and study and study and study it. Well, that's carrying on the momentum. You overcame, something overcame your inertia, and it gave you a speed and velocity, and then you had that momentum. Okay? It's an energy. It is the transfer. Yeah, it is the transference of that energy. Yeah, yeah, Herr Dr. Freud, you know. It overcame your mental inertia and gave you a shove and built up speed, which we call mental momentum. There's a type of mental mass going on, and it's an electrical type of mass that's going on. So this load is called the charge. Just like the load behind the bullet, behind the lead in a bullet, is called the charge. Okay? Or a depth charge, because it expresses the load of the energy that it's going to be releasing. Okay? Emotions are an energy, not my discovery. It's been thought of that way starting around the mid to late 1500s. It's true, look it up. Look it up. Emotions then are like light. Light. Okay? There is one spectrum of electromagnetic energy, but it has different wavelengths. And at the different wavelengths, you get different manifestations, like the different colors of visible light. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Below that you have infrared, and above that you have ultraviolet, the non-visible part of the spectrum. Below that you have microwaves, and above that you have X-rays and gamma rays and cosmic rays, etc., etc. Okay, so really long waves are getting shorter waves, but it's all one electromagnetic spectrum. It's all one type of energy. And so it is with emotions. It is. Yeah, it is. Okay. I had a friend, she couldn't do my technique, she said, because she couldn't conceive of emotions as an energy. Kind of shocked me, you know. I had another friend who had absolutely no problem with it. Okay, so it's just her. So there's one emotional spectrum, and up here is bliss, and down here is apathy. Okay, it's one spectrum with a lot of different waves. Okay, a lot of different frequencies. And at this frequency, it's bliss, very short, high wave. Okay, and down here it's apathy, very long wave. You know, hopelessness, helplessness, being a victim, you know, grief, sadness, you know, shame, blame, guilt, you know, and up here it's anger. It's anger. It's it's a wave. It's a sharp, jagged wave. Anger. Okay. And then up here it's antagonism, which is a short, little, jagged wave of you know, and you shouldn't be doing that, you blah 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 blah, you know, nah, 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 you know, sorry. And then you have something that's exciting and exhilarating, and it's happy and it's cheerful and wow, you know, God, that is so cool, man. Okay, you see the different waves? You see the different frequencies? You see the different emotional levels? You see the excitement in my voice? Okay? As opposed to, you know, it's just no longer worth it. You know? It's a wave. It's a frequency. But it's an emotional wave. Okay? So there's one emotional spectrum, and each emotion is a different wavelength of the same energy. The mind, the mental energy, is the same energy. You're just having different manifestations along the different wavelengths for the different parts of the brain and the different parts of the mind. Did I say brain? Did he say brain? Energy in the brain, like electrical energy in the brain? Yeah, sure, there's chemistry. People think that it's all, some people think that it's all chemistry, but it's not just chemistry, it's electricity. The brain makes 10 to 12 watts of electrical power. That means flow of electrons, just like these lights here. Just like the lights, just like the electricity, there must therefore be a wave of electromagnetic energy going through your brain. You don't happen to think that the amygdala, a gland in the brain, an organ in the brain, runs off of that electricity, do you? And see, in the limbic system, the amygdala is a little organ that, regulates and gives off our emotions. Right? Okay? So there's one emotional spectrum. Each emotion is a different wavelength of the same energy. Emotional energy, mental energy, and I'm not the coin of those terms either. Of either of those terms. The brain is electrochemical, not just chemical. Emotions come from the central part of the brain, the limbic system. The amygdala is one of those little organs and gland. I'm not sure if it's an organ or a gland. It's a little thing about the size of your fingernail, and it looks like it looks kind of like this. If you put your two hands together with your fingers pointing and you put your hands together like that, it kind of looks like that. It's got kind of nodes or antennas on them. Okay? Well, the right node of the amygdala is negatively charged, and the left side is 50-50. It's 50% positive and 50% negative. Now that is significant because it means we are emotionally mostly negative. All of the right side is negatively charged and the left side is 50-50. Well, if both halves of this are negative and only one half of this are negative, you've got 4 parts. So we're only 1/4 positive? It's a wonder. It's a wonder that there's any positivity in the world then. And it's a wonder that if there is a left shift in the brain to the left side using rationality as opposed to emotions on the right side, you have only a 50-50% chance then of being positive. By my reasoning. Okay? Well, my technique doesn't work like that. They're looking at memory as being more whole brain now than just the hippocampus. Hippocampus? Okay. Anyway, they thought that the memory was just, you know, 1 or 2 organs. Well, it now looks like it's more whole brain. The whole brain is firing in different parts because it has to bring together a memory that is sight and sound, as well as other things, as well as associating it with other things. And so it becomes more of a whole brain activity, and it seems to be more in the motor cortex. Okay? And so it is with emotions. I think it's more than just left brain, right, you know, left brain, right brain tug of war. And it's more than just the amygdala and the positive and the negative nodes on the right and the 50-50% positive and negative on the left. Because my technique gets rid of the negative emotions and then you're happy again, regardless of the chemistry that's going on. Because I have Graves' disease and no thyroid, my TSH levels can be out, they can be totally in with my Levoxyl and stuff and my desiccated pig thyroid medication, you know, supplement, you know, and I can still have an episode of just severe anything, from severe agitation to infuriation to a hate-filled, furious rage, which is on a scale of 1 to 10 about a 17. Okay? And so my technique works in spite of my stroke that I had back in '95 when I was 42 and burned out some of the emotional centers. In spite of the candida and leaky gut syndrome and the damage it did to my brain and my intestines and my body and the shock that I went through. In spite of the Graves' disease and the lack of thyroid, which is a chemical imbalance. So in spite of the chemistry, my technique still works. It may not work on somebody who is severely debilitated because somebody is beyond a certain level of being reached, because you have to do this technique on yourself. I did this technique on myself. This is not a technique where somebody can do it for you or do it on you. You have to have the realization about your emotional, about the emotion that you are in, and be able to do the technique. But you can do the technique anywhere. So if you're fairly able and you're not, institutionalized and unconscious and medicated all the time, technique probably help. I don't know how much it would help somebody like my aunt who had withered glands in her brain and was making less compounds and stuff like that. She went kind of bipolar and kind of she had been kind of borderline diabetic and was having problems. I don't know how much my technique would have helped her. Okay, I can only say for myself. I'm an independent researcher. I don't have any access to like colleges, etc., 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 etc. So I'm a lay person. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a lay person. But I discovered this technique, and plenty of lay people discover comets. The professionals are doing black holes and the mysteries of the universe, while the amateurs get their names on a comet. Buddhist monks have shown with meditation that they can change the amygdala to being totally positive on both sides. That's interesting. Meditation can change the amygdala to being positive on both sides. Very interesting. I have trouble meditating after my stroke, and I had trouble meditating during my Graves' disease and no thyroid, and my body was in a total uproar. My brain felt like it was on fire. With candida and leaky gut syndrome, you feel like you're in a fog constantly, and I couldn't focus to save my life. I couldn't think or make a right decision about anything. I was totally debilitated. My father had to drive me to the doctors. I'd get no help. I'd go home crying in tears for 20 minutes. My crying fits used to last 20 minutes. Now I do my technique and they're generally over with in 2 to 2.5 minutes. The crying has stopped. In a few more minutes of doing the technique on a few more emotions, I can actually become a happy camper again. In spite of the physiology. Okay? At least for myself. So charge is hardwired into our brains and is not just chemical, it's electrical. Chemistry is an energy. People forget that. Chemistry can produce 10 to 12 watts of electricity in our brains. Chemistry can create 4 or more types of energy. Pressure, as with an expanding gas. You put vinegar in a little bottle with some baking soda and cover it, and it'll blow the cap off because it's an expanding gas of the carbon dioxide. It's a chemical reaction. Well, chemical reaction is an action. Action is an energy. Energy has a load. It has an amount, an intensity, etc. It's an energy. Chemistry is an energy. Chemistry can produce heat. You can put water in one of those self-cooking little packets, and cook food. You just add water to the chemicals and you get heat. Okay, you get a chemical reaction of heat. Heat is an electromagnetic source of energy. It's an electromagnetic wave, heat. Okay. And light, you break them, you shake them, you got chemical luminescence, energy, photons, okay? Chemistry can create electricity as with your chemical batteries. And your cells, the human cells, are a tiny little battery. There was this Dr. Budwig. She was a cell doctor. She studied the human cells. She studied cells, and she discovered that the cell has a positive nucleus and a positively charged nucleus and a negatively charged membrane, which is electrical flow. Okay, electricity. So our cells have electricity. That electricity has a load. That load is called the charge. So that is chemical energy. It's called chemical energy, just like in rocketry. Okay? That has a load. That load is called the charge, as with gunpowder. So charge is not something I discovered or made up. It's been a general term forever. This technique looks at the emotion directly. We address the charge of the emotion directly. We address that. We address that. That is so and so, such and such. Okay? It is and we do the technique, and then we do the technique on that. Okay? And it is observed to go down and reduce or lessen in intensity or break up, etc. I use the term dissipates. It dissipated. It just kind of breaks up, loosens up, and then it just kind of flitters away. It's like it disintegrates. It's like a foggy day out, and 15 minutes later it's clear. What happened to it? It dissipated, we say. No kidding, I observe this just about every time I do the technique. There are several manifestations of doing the technique and noticing the emotion go down and you relax and you become calm. Well, the first time I did the technique was on a fit of irritation. That was in 2009, early in 2009, and I had not been calm for 7 years. I got my disease in about 2001, 2002. And I hadn't been calm for 7 years. That was the first time that I had been calm in 7 years. No kidding. Thus, happiness is a higher wave form of energy and probably a shorter wave. Anger is a sharp, jagged wave, like I said. Apathy would be a long, low wave. And even death has an emotional component, as many of you have probably seen with the death of a loved one, and I saw personally with the death of my father as he was dying. Okay? There's an emotional component there, not only for the person, but the victim who is passing away. They go through an emotional level called death. Not necessarily the death of the body. I saw it with my father. He passed away in February of 2016. I did my technique a lot. Probably 300 times. Every day something I did my technique on because I was so agitated all of the time. Many times, several times a day. My sister passed away in August of 2016, just last month. So I did my technique a lot on her, and the grief and the loss and the shock. And at least I don't break down and cry as often. Although I do still get choked up. I guess that would be choked up charge. I'll do the technique on that. So, Now you know about emotional charge, and that it's not just the dictionary definition of bottled up emotions. There's a lot to it. And there are more things that are charged than just emotions. And that's the addendum on the DVD. That's the subject of the addendum on the DVD that's on the website. Okay? And so you have a working, more complete definition, and you have an understanding of what you are really dealing with. You are dealing with an energy. Click the link below, go to my website, learn about the book Happiness is No Charge, meaning no negative emotions. There's now a technique that can get at them and not just reduce them, but they can stop. You can get back to your old happy-go-lucky self. I used to tell people that I was about 60%, 65% of my old self. And with my technique, I'm back to about 95+%. On a good day, I'm about 97, 97.5 is a really good day. And I'm having a lot of fun and whatever. I'm never going to be 100% again because of my Graves' disease and the no thyroid condition, etc., 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 etc. Those are things that I can just manage and can't really improve much on. But my emotions, my thoughts, my emotions, my attitudes, my beliefs, my considerations, my opinions, my conclusions, my decisions, and my assumptions and root reality, okay, that bring about my behavior, that I can improve on. And this technique helps because it takes down the negative emotional content directly. We address that directly. It was not irritation. My realization was, that's irritation charge. So go to my website, learn about Happiness is No Charge, click on above on the menu, click on My Depression Story, learn what I went through, learn how I discovered the technique, learn how it helped me. I know it could help you too. And there are other sections that you can click on as well. So see you over at the website. Click the link below. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a great day. And be well and happy, because happiness is no charge. And now you'll have a technique that can give you more than just a little hope. It can give you a lot of help. Take care.